The Boston Celtics have forced themselves into an impossible decision this off season. As rising star and center, Luke Kornet has showcased that he is one of the most underrated bigs across the NBA on one of the best value contracts. And with the Boston Celtics having some salary cap restrictions, being in the second apron, it is going to be incredibly hard to retain someone who is so valuable to this franchise in this role. So in this episode today, we're going to dive in and explore how Luke Kornet has been able to get into that dominant performance and how the Boston Celtics will be able to keep him if they want to stay pat with him. We'll be diving into all of that and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I am Bruce Veliz, and you guys have been fantastic, showing your love and support on the channel for Patrick and I. Even with the Celtics going down 0-2 in this series, it has been really, really appreciative of all the support you guys have been giving us and tuning into the content. So if you want to make sure you stay up to date on everything like these videos, the live streams on Wednesday, and everything in that mix, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as right around 64% of you guys who watch these videos are not subscribed. So if you want to make sure you get all the daily Celtics news, this is the place for you. Without further ado, we're going to dive in and we're going to get to the video at hand. So make sure to grab that snack and let's dive into it. As we've seen some amazing play from Luke Kornet so far this season, and it's ultimately fantastic this year, right? We've seen Luke Kornet obviously come back on a veteran minimum contract this year after a season where many of us, including myself, thought he might be able to net more money in the big market. And he came out and said that he was able to do that, but liked his home in Boston and liked the culture that they did bring and wanted to obviously repeat as a champion coming back to Boston. And Luke Kornet has had those visions still in mind, obviously, with this Celtics team. But with his great play in the regular season and even in the playoffs, he's really been able to show that for the Celtics. We saw Luke get that big dominance off the rip for the Boston Celtics in the first preseason game where Kristaps Porziņģis was out with an injury. We saw Luke Kornet in Abu Dhabi going up against Nikola Jokic, and a lot of Celtics fans questioned this move by Joe Mazzulla. But Joe Mazzulla trusted in his big, and he came out and played and showcased from the start that he could fill in that role for Porziņģis this season. And we've seen that through the playoffs as well. As Luke Kornet in yesterday's game was electric. 3 for 4 from shooting, 8 rebounds, and a +6 for the Boston Celtics in only 19 minutes of play. And not just me thought this, but everyone thought this on Twitter. If we want to look at these tweets from Jack Simone, from Noah Dalzell here of CLNS, and from Hardwood Houdini and How About Them Celtics, we can see that they also were at the game and idolizing Luke Kornet as well, with Jack saying that Kornet, Brown, and Holiday have been the 3 best Celtics tonight, obviously in the first half. Unbelievable stuff from all 3 of those guys, game changing. And Dalzell following that up, but Noah saying just awesome that Luke Kornet minutes so far tonight, the best of the Celtics center rotation. And then at the first half said his Luke Kornet minutes were very, very key. And I couldn't agree more. And Nick NBA, one of my boys who I've had on this channel here before as well, made some stuff, was talking about this Celtics team, and his main takeaway from all of this, which I think a lot of us had from the end of the game, was Luke needs way more than 17 minutes. Man, that was not an easy thing to see. And that Luke should have closed the game out too. And with those factors kind of being brought in, it's clear that Luke Kornet is not just a backup big for the Boston Celtics, but he means more than that, right? His rim protection, his passing, the ability that he has to, where we saw with the Boston Celtics early on, where he was sprinting full court, dragging Karl-Anthony Towns down to the paint for just an easy pass for Derrick White to clear up and give them that wide open 3 in the first half to get the crowd roaring. It's just those little things that Luke Kornet does, those intricacies, those tendencies that he has of being a smart basketball player that makes other plays easier and effectable for this Boston Celtics team, and making plays, not even touching the ball, but for Derrick White, for Jaylen Brown. But when he is able to, work within this rotation, he sets those good screens, can work the pick and roll right. Like I said, he can pass the ball. He's a good rim deterrent. He gets those Kornet contests. He can give you a little bit of shot contention. And we've also seen with the Celtics, with them kind of playing off ball on Josh Hart a little bit, he's been able to pick that matchup up a bit and be able to deter Josh Hart and any ability of him trying to create offensively for this New York Knicks team. And those are all great things, once again, from someone who is underrated across the league. And we've had videos drop out all throughout the season going over some key stats revolving around Luke Kornet as well. But I think the best part of all of this, right, ladies and gentlemen, is his contract, as he is on a $2 million deal, like I said, a veteran minimum contract, and he chose to take a pay cut to come back to Boston. I think that's very keen for Luke, obviously. This was the team that really let him find himself and evaluate himself and break out into the NBA, obviously having stints with the Knicks, Bucks, and Bulls previously. But once he was with Boston, he was really able to establish himself within those main Celtics, work himself up to this regular Celtics roster, and find a home. And I think that means a lot more to Luke Kornet than the money. But with that being said, obviously, this season, he is a free agent, right? And with his exceeding play so far, a lot of teams across the league are going to be looking at that Luke Kornet guy and saying, hey, he's a lot better than a backup center. He could be our starting center, or he could be even the guy that is coming off our bench but playing more minutes than he is for the Boston Celtics, being the second or third guy off the bench, more like being a first guy off the bench for us. And I think a lot of those teams will definitely explore that, have the money to try and pry away a player like Luke Kornet from this Boston Celtics team. And that's why I think the Celtics will be forced in this impossible decision, in which I stand and say that Luke Kornet cannot leave. And I've tweeted this out multiple times. So if you follow me on Twitter, I really do appreciate it. If you don't, a little bit of a shameless plug. Follow me on X over at Bruce Veliz, right there where my name is, to get all my updates on the Boston Celtics as the games are going live and stuff like that. Some stuff that you don't see on here. But they cannot let Luke Kornet leave. And I stated this in game one here versus the New York Knicks. Like I mentioned, all those little things, but not just that, the ability to work alongside Jayson Tatum in these pick and rolls, being one of the best pick and roll duos in the NBA, but not just that, having those great relationships with Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser on this court, and for playing an impactful role and stepping up to his role all throughout the season. He is well deserving of a big time contract. But like that with the Boston Celtics, and like we mentioned, it's a little bit tough for the Celtics to give him a contract, right? One, he's obviously a free agent alongside Al Horford and alongside Torrey Craig, but the Celtics projected salary next season is to be $230 million, already $23 million over the projected second apron limit, which would make it very difficult for the Boston Celtics to, one, be able to sign Luke Kornet, but also be able to pay those tax benefits after the fact. We saw with Lonnie Walker last year, right? Someone that was a veteran minimum contract would have costed the Celtics $15 million in extra salary cap with the luxury tax amenities, and that was not worth it for bringing him on as the 15th guy for the roster. So for a guy like Luke Kornet, someone that's obviously a key role player, it is definitely necessary to give him that money, but at how much do you give him that money for? And that opens the question on how the Celtics will be able to do this, right? If they do lose this series versus the Knicks, changes will be coming. And with this team being stacked into the ends here, what will they be able to do to bring a guy like Luke Kornet back, who I think is a vital stay? Well, they have two contracts that they can monitor, and that's Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porziņģis, the two contracts that they traded for at the beginning of two off seasons ago, before they won the NBA championship, or last off season. I'm confused with my math, but before they won the championship, they traded for those guys, and obviously those guys were viewed as key championship pieces to help put the Celtics over the curb, but also were viewed as pieces that were going to be here for a short time, not the long haul, and pieces that were going to be reworked and removed on for the Celtics to still build around Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Derrick White to compete for these championships. And I do see the Celtics looking and eyeing at that, specifically when talking about these two guys in Horford and Luke Kornet. We see how vital they have been for the Celtics front court, even in their cheap contracts of, $6 million for Al Horford and Luke Kornet $8 million, making it almost under $10 million, but valuable on both sides of the floor. And I think the Celtics need both of those guys back. And to do so, they're going to have to move off of one person out. Unfortunately, I do think it will be Kristaps Porziņģis here. I know that question obviously does not going to resonate great with a lot of Celtics fans, but with his availability to not be able to suit up for the Celtics as much as we've seen in the playoffs and this season, and also with him making around $30 million next year on a one-year deal, he seems like the first domino to fall for this Celtics team, especially if they want to still bolster this front court group. They can bring back Luke Kornet, bring back Al Horford, trade away Kristaps Porziņģis $30 million, right? Drop below into that second apron, still be into that second apron with bringing those guys back and whoever they get back in a Kristaps Porziņģis deal, but have a little bit more flexibility with some of their contracts. And who knows, maybe look at the back end at some deals, right? Guys like Sam Hauser, a Namus Keita, a Xavier Tillman to move off of, to shed more salary as well to kind of fit in with this bill. But I think guys like Luke Kornet and Al Horford are mandatory stays and need to be brought back for this team to see that success. We've already seen Luke grow, and I don't want to see him grow into this player and actually flourish and then leave this Celtics team and expand and grow even more on another franchise. He's a mainstay. He's someone that wants to be a Boston Celtic, and like I mentioned, a mainstay kind of key, was a main Celtic, so someone that has a lot of pride and, integrity into the city that kind of molded him to the player to be, and I think he'll respect that when looking at a contract. And who knows, like I said, maybe they have to move off of a guy in Kristaps Porziņģis to do so, or they lose Luke Kornet and try to retool or rekindle this roster with maybe another rookie in the draft class. But I want to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I want to know what you guys think the Boston Celtics should do. You think they're forced into this a possible decision? Do you think they can bring back Luke Kornet even with this roster? Do you agree with me and think a change needs to come? And what change would you like to see for Luke Kornet to be brought back as well? I want to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. And like I said, thank you guys so much for showing the support, coming out to the live streams, and hitting that like and subscribe for Patrick and I as we are doing these videos for you guys every single day. So once again, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics. Peace out, everyone.